to Mother Bloggers, the new show for moms everywhere. Each week we're going to bring you insight, views, and advice from some of the nation's most popular mother bloggers who write about their lives, their families, their jobs, who they ran into in the grocery store, whatever, but most of all, their kids. I'm Stacy Dymalski, coming to you from Park City, Utah, and I'm a mother blogger myself. You may know me from my popular humor blog, nonsense-to-momsenseofhumor.com, how my life as a stand-up comic prepared me for motherhood. You can find it at nonsense-to-momsense.com. We hope you enjoyed this show as we explore deeper into the subjects that we all blog about. Topics that are informative and poignant and, well, we hope funny, because that's what we're really going for here is funny. So let me introduce you to all the other mother bloggers on this show, my mothers in arms, as I'd like to call them. First of all, let's say hello to Amanda Rodriguez, who comes to us from Washington, D.C. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda from parentingbydummies.com.
Thanks, Amanda. And now let's say hi to Jennie Marshall from Chicago, Illinois. And I need to get this right, so bear with me because she has a very interesting name for her blog. It's called, I got to say this right, knuckingfutsmama.com. Hey there, Jennie.
Hi, I'm Jennie from knuckingfutsmama.com.
Great, thanks, Jennie. And coming to us from Connecticut, we have Susie Johnson, otherwise known as Not Your Average Mom. Hey there, Susie.
Hi, I'm Susie, and I write NotYourAverageMom.com.
And finally, from Los Angeles, we have one of our favorites on all this show. We've got Heidi Ferrer from girltomom.com. Say hello, Heidi.
Hi, ladies. I'm Heidi Ferrer from Los Angeles, California, and you may know me from my popular blog, girltomom.com, trying to become a grown-up before my kid does.
Thanks, Heidi, and thanks to all you people out there watching. We're the Mother Bloggers, and we are so happy to have you here today. Okay, so let's just get into our first topic, bedtime battles. I'm talking about with your kids, not your spouse. Frankly, I don't understand what it is about bedtime that kids don't like. Quite honestly, the first thing I think of when I wake up in the morning is how I can't wait to go to bed that night. I would love for anything to be able to take a nap in the middle of the day and go to bed right after dinner. What is up with the kids? I think they think they're going to miss out on something if they don't get to stay up until, Letterman is over. So it's been the long time coming, this bedtime battle with kids. And fortunately for us, Jennie has a great blog on the topic that I'm going to let her talk about with you all. Jennie, tell us about your bedtime battle blog.
This week's blog comes from none other than myself, and it is about one of the things that drives me knucking futs the most, and that is my nightly battle with getting my kids to go to bed and to stay in bed. It is a game of cat and mouse every single stinking night. And I play this game with them where I put them in bed, I come downstairs, I think they're in bed, they're not in bed. I go back upstairs, I put them in bed, and once again they pop back up. It continues and it drives me crazy, and it's come down to bribery and or duct tape. Just kidding, haha, sort of. But anyway, I need my me time. If you have suggestions out there, I'd love to hear them. And so here is this week's vlog.
I don't know about you, but bedtime at my house is a nightly battle with my patients. And for the life of me, I don't understand why my kids don't realize that nice mommy checks out at 8 p.m. and mean mommy checks in. Let me just give you an example of what a typical night in my house looks like. All right? Follow me. All right, good night, kids. Stay in your beds. Do not get out. Phew, finally, some me time. Oh, let's see. Finally.
Mommy, I'm hungry.
The kitchen is closed. Back to your room. Back. Every night. Now, where was I? Let's see. Finally.
Mommy.
What?
I'm thirsty.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. get a drink of water and get back in your bed, and I mean immediately. Jeez Louise. Finally.
We can't go to sleep.
That is it! If you have any other better solutions other than bribery and duct tape, I am all ears.
Great vlog, Jennie. I'm sure we could all learn a little bit from that. But what about the rest of you? I'm sure as moms, you all have your own versions of the bedtime battle. Heidi, how do you get your son to go to bed at night?
Well, I think we fail at it. I've heard stories of parents who get their kids in bed by 7 p.m. and they go to sleep and sleep for the night. But that is not my story. Basically, my son, who's 5, wants to stay up with mommy and daddy, and he pretty much stays up till about an hour before we go to bed. So we might get like 1 hour of grown-up time, which is not enough, but it's also really sweet because he'll cuddle up on the couch with us and fall asleep with a blanket and a pillow on one of our laps. And then we carry him to bed, and luckily it's a huge blessing because my son's a heavy sleeper, and he wears, now for scoliosis, he wears a nighttime brace that's quite rigid and difficult to put on, but because he's such a heavy sleeper, we put it on after he falls asleep, and it's keeping his spine straight, which is, you know, amazing. And then we put on his pajamas, and the whole time he's sleeping, and then he sleeps through the night. So getting him to go to bed is really hard, but once he's asleep, you know, it's cool. We're good. And he usually asks for sugar in the evening, so he's probably going into a diabetic coma. He has a cookie, and then he passes out. So that's my great parenting story. How about y'all?
Well, I have to admit, whenever I have a cookie after 9, I pass out, so I completely understand that. All right, well, thanks, Heidi. I'm sure we can all learn a lot from that. I think that the bedtime battle is something that they should tell you about when you bring your child home from the hospital, because it starts immediately with that first middle night feeding. I mean, you know what's coming, but you just hate it. So they ought to give bedtime battle lessons right before you take your kid home from the hospital. Or maybe after you take your kid home, because if they do it before, you may not want to take your kid home. All right, Susie, what about you? How do you get your kids to all go to bed, not just to go to bed, but go to bed at the same time?
I just wanted to tell Heidi that I'd like to come over to her house so she can tuck me into bed too, because that sounds like a nice bedtime routine. Anyway, at our house, I'm all about a schedule and sticking to a routine, and we put the kids to bed in shifts. We now have the 1-year-old and the 2-year-old go to bed at the same time, and that's the first shift. The next shift is the 3, 6, and 7-year-old go together at the same time, and then we say goodnight to the older 2. They're the third shift. But really, the battle isn't with the kids. The battle is with my husband and me, who wants to put the 1 and 2-year-old to bed because they're so draining and exhausting that neither one of us really wants to do that shift. So for me, that's what it's about. Sticking to a schedule and sticking to a routine. And we did have a nightmare with my now 3-year-old, who was always a great sleeper. And once she got to 2.5, somehow she kind of turned the tables on us, and the easiest one to put to bed turned into the most difficult one to put to bed. And we ended up going from just saying goodnight to singing a song and then telling a story and then rubbing her back a certain number of times and then exiting the room in a particular way.
This is why moms deserve medals.
Before we knew it, it had turned into about a 15-minute routine.
Wow.
So that was the worst battle that we had, and all I had to do was tell her if she would go to bed like a big girl, she could get out of the crib and get a big girl bed, and miraculously the next day the routine was ended. So
wow,
you never know.
That's fantastic. I can't even imagine with 7 kids, after trying to get them to bed, I would need a nap. I can't even imagine what that would be like. So, all right, well, And Amanda, what have you got to say about it? How do you get your kids to cooperate long enough to get them in bed so you can shut the door and turn out the light?
So I'm fortunate that I have one that is 11 and he's pretty well trained up on how to get himself into bed. So I did something right the first time. With my youngest one, who's still only 4, I sort of just gave in, and we don't have any kind of bedtime battles because I just let him sleep with me. That he already won that battle, and I know that he's not going to probably still be sleeping with me when he, like, I don't know, goes off to college. And if he is, then we probably have other problems aside from that. So we're pretty, I think my middle one, he exhausts himself so much during the day that he usually randomly falls asleep places, and then I just sneak him into his bed.
Gosh, that reminds me of college, actually. That's kind of how I went to bed every night. I'd fall asleep randomly and somebody would just kind of sneak me into bed. But, you know, that's a whole nother life and a whole nother story. All right, well, I've certainly learned about bedtime battles, and I've learned that I'm not so bad. It's not so bad at my house, especially now that they're teenagers. My battle isn't really bedtime. It's when it's the next morning trying to get their lazy behinds out of bed. All right, well, I think we're going to move on to our next topic in this episode, which is embarrassing mom moments. Now, I'll go ahead and start. I do have I've got several embarrassing mom moments, but the one that comes to mind was when my older son, was in preschool. At that time, since I wasn't doing stand-up comedy anymore, I was doing some television writing, producing and directing of commercials, independent films, anything that anybody would hire me for in that realm. So I was actually directing an independent film, and it was sort of a racy, adult-themed movie. And so when I was in the editing, my son walked into the room while I was editing, and he goes, "Can I see?" And I said, "No, this is kind of for adults, so you need to go in the other room." I had an editing studio at home. So then the next day, I get a phone call from the preschool teacher who wants me to come in and talk to her because she found out something disturbing, or I didn't really understand. So I went in there, and that day, the kids were supposed to say what their parents did for a living. And my husband was also a stay-at-home dad as an editor. So we hardly ever left the house. So when it was his turn to say, "What do your parents do for a living?" my son stood up and said, "My mom makes adult films and my dad doesn't do anything." So, of course, you could imagine the teachers were a little concerned about that. So I had to go in and set them straight. Now, I'm sure they didn't think I really made adult films once they saw me, because I was your typical mom. I don't think I could have made it in that industry. Anyway, so what about the rest of you? I'm sure that you all have some mother blogger, terrible, very, very embarrassing mom moments. Susie, let's start with you. What is one of your worst, most embarrassing mom moments?
Well, if you read my blog, I don't refer to my kids by their names in the blog, but so they're by number. Number 4 is my daughter, who's in 1st grade now, and she's 6, and she speaks her mind, and she's not shy. One of my pet peeves as a mom is when you take a baby out and they're dressed in pink, and they're in a pink car seat with a pink blanket and a pink bow in their hair, and the only thing they're missing is a neon sign pointing at them saying, "I'm a girl." When you take them to the store or take them out in public and somebody calls them a boy. And so I was at the store with number 4, and a man came up to us at the deli and said, "Oh, do you take good care of your little brother?" And she looked at him and she said, "Duh, it's a girl." And I actually, while it was embarrassing, I was actually kind of proud of her. It was one of the things that I always want to say when somebody, when somebody says that. So anyway, then there are the embarrassing moments when you're just at home and your kids say things that embarrass you. And
so true.
My 3-year-old looked at me and looked directly at my chest and said, "Mom, why are those so big?" You don't have to be in public to be mortified by your children.
With 7 kids, I'm sure you've got even more stories, but that would take up all of our time. I'm sure you could fill this whole entire segment with stories about your 7 kids. I can't even imagine. All right, Amanda, let's go to you. So what is an embarrassing moment for you as a mom? Tell us about it.
Well, I have more than I can probably count, and you don't have time to listen to all of them, but I will say that I think when I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's strange how many of my embarrassing moments have to do with penises. So, let me give you an example. We had went to Panera with my whole family, including my in-laws, and we're sitting there eating. It was after one of my son's games, so we're sitting there eating, and everyone's just talking, and then my 2 youngest boys decided they were going to play the game where they grab your nose, and then, you know, they say, like, "I got your nose," and then the person puts their thumb, you know, in their fingers or whatever. So they're playing that, and it's going great, and every time my 7-year-old would do it to my 4-year-old, he would yell, "Give me back my nose," which makes total sense if somebody is stealing your nose, right? So they do this about 3 times, and everybody's just eating, and I need to let you know also that my youngest son is hard of hearing, so he talks a little bit louder than a normal child. So he had done it to him maybe 4 times, and the 5th time he grabbed it, he said, "I got your nose," and my 4-year-old in a crowded Panera with my entire family and my in-laws yells, "Give me back my penis." I don't know why anybody would say that or that would come to his mind, but it did. And of course, everybody looked at me like I had actually said it instead of him. And I wanted to crawl under the table, but instead I did the most inappropriate thing possible and I just laughed. Because what else could I do? It was either that or cry.
Boy, can I sympathize with that. There have been many times, both as a parent and as a comic, that I would have rather cried than laughed. But you just kind of do what you got to do. So, thanks for sharing that with us. That was embarrassing, to say the least. All right, well, let's move along. Heidi, can you tell us what one of your most embarrassing mom moments have been?
Yes, I think there's nothing much more embarrassing than public toddler tantrums that are like a volcano exploding in front of a bunch of strangers. And when my son was 3 years old, we went to this pumpkin patch at Halloween, which is like, it's called Mr. Bones Pumpkin Patch, and it's kind of a celebrity one in Beverly Hills. And we were there. He was 3, and he was still wearing his body casts for scoliosis, which were on his torso. So they're really bulky, and when the shirt rides up, you can see the cast, which can be embarrassing because strangers would think that like I injured my child by like dropping him off a building or something, when in actuality it was like a really great thing, and it was a miracle that was saving his life. So anyway, we were at the petting zoo portion of the pumpkin patch, and the singer Gwen Stefani from No Doubt was there with her kids and a whole bunch of other people, and the paparazzi were lined up to shoot pictures of Gwen Stefani and her son Kingston. And so this was the time in which my son decided to have a freak out tantrum because in the petting zoo they were allowing kids out, but they weren't allowing the other kids in, and it was like a 10-minute wait to get in. So it was like a reverse prison situation where basically my son felt like there are animals in there and there are children in there, and like, why can I not go in? Like, he totally didn't understand why he had to wait. So when someone opened the door to the fence to let a child out, he ran in before he was legally allowed to be in there. And the girl told me, "Is this yours? Is that kid yours?" Like a 20-year-old, you know, running the thing. So I had to chase in after him while he threw himself in the poop-filled hay amongst the animals, screaming hysterically in front of all of the other parents, his shirt riding up, his cast showing, and kicking and screaming, and I had to drag him out of the petting zoo, and I wanted to cry, basically. So it was horrifying.
Well, I have good news for you, Heidi. As bad as a toddler tantrum is, you're going to get sweet revenge when they're teenagers, because now what happens is I have my big meltdown in public in front of my kids, and they're the ones that get embarrassed. And I have to admit it's a little therapeutic for me and a little mortifying for them, but it's just something they're going to have to learn to live with until they leave home. And by the way, I tell them that when they leave home, they're going to have a checkout bill like they cannot believe. So in the end, I think it'll all be good. All right, and now let's go to our last mother blogger. Jennie, what have you got for us?
Well, unfortunately, my life is a series of embarrassing moments, thanks to my little children, God bless their little hearts, who are constantly drawing unwanted attention to me in public places. And I've learned to just kind of laugh it off, because otherwise I will probably end up in the nut house. But the list is long and plentiful, but one moment that I recall is when my daughter decided to pull up my skirt in a very crowded bank on a Friday afternoon, one of the most crowded days at the bank probably, and show the entire bank my thong. That was quite embarrassing. And probably what goes down as the most embarrassing moment to date, which I'm sure there are going to be many more to follow, is when my son was in first grade and he had a little friend over for a play date, and they were really, really involved in a game of Wii. So I thought, well, I could probably sneak off and take the shower that I'd been putting off all day and take a shower and be out before they'd even know what happened. So I went into the bathroom, and this is when I discovered that the lock on our master bathroom is in fact broken. And I was in the midst of taking my shower and look up and see my son and his little friend standing there laughing and pointing at me in all my naked glory. And I couldn't help but think, oh dear God, I can't imagine what it's going to be like the next time I see this little boy's dad, who happens to be one of our good friends. And much as I expected, he got quite a chuckle out of the next time I did see him, in remembering exactly what went down in the bathroom when his son was over for a play date. So that is probably one of my more embarrassing moments, but like I said, you either got to laugh about it or drive yourself crazy, and I choose to laugh. I suggest all mothers do the same.
Well, I would have to say you probably win the prize on that one, and there's nothing better than really good locks that work in your house. Just be happy that your son and his friend didn't go off and say, hey, this is a great way to make some money. We're going to charge 10 cents a kid to everybody come in and watch my mom take a shower. I don't know. So you could either look at that as it was a missed opportunity, or thank God they just aren't quite that smart yet. But I have to say that tops about any embarrassing moment that I can think of for me. That would be a tough one. So kudos to you for handling it. And yes, it definitely gives you something to write about. Okay, ladies, those were great stories. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, for tuning in, and of course for the mother bloggers to share their most embarrassing moments in their bedtime battles. You can stay up to date with new episodes by following us on Twitter by going to twitter.com/motherbloggers. I'm Stacy Dymalski.
I'm Amanda at parentingbydummies.com.
And I'm Jennie from knuckingfutsmama.com.
I'm Susie at notyouraverage.mom.com.
I'm Heidi Ferrer from girltomom.com.
And we are the Mother Bloggers.
Hey moms, stay up to date with us on Twitter at motherbloggers and at facebook.com/motherbloggers. If you're a mom blogger and you would like to be a guest in this show, go to firstrun.tv/motherbloggers. And if you're a blogger, please blog about Mother Bloggers Show and help us spread the word.